All right, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to Around the Bases, Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. I'm Chris Gonzalez, joined by Jay McLovin, world champion. There you go, Jay. It did also stat guy Dustin Reese. How's it going, guys?
Oh, it's going.
I'm sorry. It's customary when the world champion is in the room of a baseball show that he goes first. Dustin, please know your role. Stay in the doghouse. Stay where you are,
Jay's
and
got one
hold on, and understand, please. He will acknowledge me, as Roman Reigns says. Acknowledge me. He will acknowledge me. He will recognize greatness. You will recognize world championship and let that person go first. That's customary. That's how it always has been. That's how it always will be. I am doing well. I am doing well. My team won last night. I don't know how you guys did because I didn't care to check it out. I'll check it out here in a minute. But we did well. Dustin, I don't know what's going on, but this is the second damn time that the Astro starter has gone down with an injury. Quiddy was the last one. Last night, it was Garcia. He pitched like one hitter, and then the next hitter, he had an elbow issue. They took him out. They brought this kid Bilac up from the AAA. He does pretty good. He gets 6 strikeouts. He does give up 2 runs. But ultimately, given the circumstances, he pitched really well, man, and we got the win. But, man, what a time to be alive. I just don't understand what's going on with all these injuries, I tell you.
It could be the fact that Houston played so deep into the season last year.
True.
Because you do see that a lot with teams in the World Series, especially when it comes to pitchers that are used in the World Series. They don't get that extra 6 weeks off like the teams that don't make the playoffs, so they're putting more stress on their arm for an additional 6 weeks.
Never again. Hey, Billy, I get you, brother.
Billy,
I know Garcia went and pitched in the what do you call it, the World Cup. I don't think Urquidy did, but I know Garcia did. So I wonder how much of an effect that had on him getting hurt.
Yeah. There's been quite a few guys getting hurt. Judge is out now. It seems like there's been a lot of injuries here at the beginning of the season. Speaking of injuries, Bryce Harper, they're saying he's going to make his return tonight. I'm sure it's just going to be as a DH, but he'll be making his return coming off that Tommy John surgery in November. They're talking like he's going to play tonight.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Tatis made his debut last night, and when I saw at least a little bit, he looked like he did pretty well.
I didn't want to talk about that. He hit the ball pretty good against my Reds last night.
Are you talking Fernando Tatis?
Yeah.
He made his debut like 2 weeks ago already.
No, I mean that was his home debut. Let me correct that. That was his home debut.
Yeah, he hit the ball pretty good against the Reds last night.
It's not really his debut. He's been playing baseball since the middle of April because he was in the minors.
Lord Jesus, don't let me slap the ball sack. Don't let me slap the ball sack. Okay, Dustin, I'm gonna sit here and look happy. Damn, son.
Well, where these Pittsburgh Pirates come from?
Dustin, you got an idea on that one? Because I sure as hell don't. I mean, literally, these guys, I didn't expect them to be this good. Honestly, I really didn't expect them to be this good.
This is a classic case of a team that went through 19 consecutive losing seasons, finally made the playoffs in 2013 and made the playoffs 2013 through 2015. Were competitive in 2016 and 2017, and then had to start selling off their expensive assets like Jamison Tyone and a lot of their good Andrew McCutchen and a lot of their good players that they had during that brief playoff run. And then they went back into the bottom feeders for the last 5 or 6 years, traded away their assets to recuperate prospects. They've actually done a very good job on the international free agent market, which you can see in O'Neal Cruz, the one Korean player that they had before he got in trouble for beating his wife a couple of years ago. But they've done a very good job of getting back to the international market. Guys like Ke'Bryan Hayes have come up sooner than people expected. They have some young starters that are starting to come up now again, and then they've always had a good bullpen, especially last year where their bullpen was kind of that saving grace. And Now you see guys like AJ Puck, who was the Pirates closer last year, is now with the Miami Marlins, and he's got a .082 ERA with a major league leading 9 saves right now. So, I mean, the Pirates have had some talent the last couple of years. They just haven't had loads of talent, but now you're starting to see that farm system that they restocked the last 5-6 years start to come up, and they're playing well. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep it up all season, but they're playing well enough now where we were talking about this yesterday in the afternoon just show, Jay. If this team plays 500 baseball the rest of the year, they're still going to win 86, 87 games, and that alone is going to put them in a position to get that final wild card spot. So because of the start they've gotten off to, they could be putting themselves in playoff contention before the year's over.
Yeah, if they can find a way to win 15 games a month, that would put them at 90. And 90 is definitely good enough, for the postseason, whether it be at the top or whether it be a wild card. If you can get 90 wins, you should be able to make the postseason. So all they really got to do is try to average 15 or better every month, and they'll be good. That's pretty much the rule that Dusty Baker goes by. Is he just says, I just want to win 15 games a month. If I get more, that's great. But just give me 15 a month. I make the postseason, and then we go from there. So that's a good rule to think about. Just try to get 15 a month. And if the Pirates, like you said, if they could continue to, just play 500 ball, that should put them at probably 15 games or right at 15 games a month. So that should put them in a pretty good spot.
Dustin, what have you thought? What have you thought of the Cubs' start to the season so far?
I think they got off to a better start than what I expected, especially when you looked at that early season schedule that they had. They played Milwaukee to open the season, then they had Cincinnati, but then they had Texas and Seattle back-to-back. Went 4-2 against both of those teams, which is a win in itself because when you look at how Texas is playing this year and when you look at how good Seattle was last year. Then they had the Dodgers and the Padres for 10 straight games, and the Cubs, I think, went 5-5 or 6-4 in those 10 games. Again, a win in itself when you look at how good the Padres and the Dodgers were last year. They did hit a little bit of a rough patch with the Marlins last week, and when the Marlins swept them, but all 3 games were one-run games. And if you look at the Miami Marlins this year, they're 11-0 in one-run games. So if a game is close, the Marlins are finding ways to win it. Cubs are sitting at 15-13 right now, which it's pretty much a 500 team, a little bit better. I honestly, through 30 games, kind of had them in that 14-16 range, maybe even 13-17, just because of the schedule they had in April. They have a much easier schedule the first part of May than they do the second part of May, so I figured if they were going to maybe get above 500, they would do it at this point of the season. So I think they're kind of where I expected them to be at this point, maybe a little bit better, but it's just because they got off to, I think, a better start in April than a lot of people expected them to.
Yeah. For me with the Reds, I think they've got off to probably a little bit better start than I expected. I know that we have a losing record right now, but we've been more competitive than what I thought. We've lost a lot of one-run games. We've lost like 8 or 9 one-run games now.
Yeah, and that's the Cubs' problem too. Like I said, the Marlins are 10-0 in one-run games, and the Cubs are 2-8.
Yeah, I think.
Well, you even go 4-4 in those one-run games, and all of a sudden now the Cubs are sitting at 18-12 as opposed to 15-13.
Yeah, because the Reds are like 2-10 in one-run games. If you can just win 5 of those games, we're sitting a lot closer to 500.
Oh, absolutely.
And with the Reds, it seems like we played pretty good against the better teams, and then the teams that you would think that we would have a chance to beat, we find a way to lose to. Like we swept the Rangers, and then we turn around and we won 2 against the Athletics, and we blew the last game. But
since Jay likes to make the afternoon show about the Dallas Cowboys all the time, I'm going to make this part about the Chicago Cubs because I want your thoughts on a certain pitcher for the Chicago Cubs that nobody really talks about. And I want your guys' thoughts on Justin Steele. The guy's sitting at 4-0 right now with a 1.47 ERA, which I believe is third best in Major League Baseball right now. But if you go back to June 22nd of last year, which is a span of 26 starts, Justin Steele leads the major leagues in earned run average with a 1.23. But yet nobody talks about him as a pitcher. What are your thoughts on Justin Steele? Because he's very similar to a John Lester. He's not overpowering at all. He throws about 92, 93, and he literally throws 2 pitches. It's fastball, slider, and every now and then he might mix in a changeup.
Yeah, again, with that type of an ERA, especially he's up to a 4-0 start, if he could continue that throughout the season without injury, and if he can stay on that pace, there's no reason why he wouldn't be in the Cy Young conversation for sure. I think a lot of times, especially I know with me, if you and not, this is no knock on the Cubs, but I'm just saying if your team isn't necessarily high up in the standings, I guess maybe I do kind of gloss over it a little bit because I'm not really paying attention too much to the Cubs. So I wouldn't probably care as much to see Steele or really follow Steele as well. So I think it's just, for me, it just happens to be the team that he's on because, they're not being as successful. So I don't really, and he's also in the National League. So I don't really necessarily pay a whole lot of attention as I should to the National League pitching. I got to be honest, because I'm in the American League, I think I'm just so focused on, guys that teams that I have to go up against, like the Yankees or Boston or Seattle or Tampa. I think I tend to focus more on my side of the world rather than when I was in the National League. I would focus more on the Cubs, the Reds, stuff like that, because we played those guys. So yeah. I think I was more in tune with that. So, again, it's not a knock on the Cubs. It's just I haven't paid a lot of attention to the National League like I should. As a podcaster, I should pay more attention. But, again, I do want to give the guy mad credit, mad respect. There's a 4-0 record. And what'd you say? It was 1.4 something?
1.47 ERA this year.
Yeah, 1.47 ERA. I mean, if my memory serves correctly, I don't even think Justin Verlander, when he got the Cy Young at the end of the season, I think he was around a 1.79. So when I put that in perspective to like a Verlander or a DeGrom or a Garrett Cole, more of the prominent names that I tend to watch on my side of the world, it certainly carries a lot of weight. Now, again, let's keep it real. It is still the beginning of the season, but if he can continue this pace and if he can stay healthy and not go on the IL, then obviously you got to really consider him pretty heavily at the Cy Young.
Yeah, with his start on Sunday, he gave up 2 earned runs on Sunday. He now has 19 straight starts of 2 earned runs or less.
Well, that's a hell of a good damn way to play.
And that's what I was going to say about him. His record could be even a little better because he got a no decision in that game.
Yeah, and if you look at last year too, he was 7-8 last year, so he had I think 13 or 14 no decisions last year because he was giving up 2 runs and the offense wasn't giving him any support.
It's interesting that they have Marcus Stroman as the leadoff of that rotation, and then they put Steele behind Tyone.
No, they switched it now. They put Stroman as the ace just because he's a more experienced pitcher, but they put Steele number 2. So now the Cubs go right.
I'm assuming they put him number 2 because Tyone is injured. Because on the depth chart, they got Tyone as number 2.
They switched it right when the season started because the Cubs wanted to go left, right, because they have Stroman as a righty, Steele as a lefty, Tyone as a righty, Smiley as a lefty, and then Wisniewski as a righty. So they pretty much wanted to go basically right, left to alternate everybody.
Okay, I got you.
I like Steele. He's not, like you say, he's not overpowering, but he has good location. And I'll be honest with you, when I do my sports betting, I'm breaking down games. That's usually when I do pick the Cubs is when Steele's on the mound because I know you guys are usually going to be in the game.
What's his fastball?
He's had a lot.
Yeah, his fastball sits right around 92, sometimes 93. He was at around 94 his last start, but it's pretty much he throws his fastball 54% of the time, and he throws his slider 48% of the time, basically.
And he's probably
how many pitches are in his repertoire? How many does he have in there?
He's got 3, but he only uses 2. It's literally just fastball, slider, and then every now and then
he should have at least a 4th one. He should have a cutter or maybe even a curveball or something.
Yeah, his slider he can technically throw 2 different ways. So one like to lefties, it looks like a slider where it goes like left to right. But then against a righty, it looks more like a curveball where it goes top down just because he just moves his finger a couple inches to the side and he kind of changes it a little bit. Right. So I guess you could say he does technically have 4 pitches, but it's still.
Because I think a guy needs at least the truly successful ones that go long distance. Should have at least 4 pitches in their repertoire, and that's number 1. That's just for confusion purposes. But number 2, You don't have to live by the fastball, like you said, 54% of the time, because a lot of times you can wear your arm out that way. So if you got a good curveball, a good slider, changeup, if you can put a sinker in there, whatever, that's going to probably help you, reserve a lot of your arm.
Can we talk about the two biggest disappointments in baseball this year?
Well, let's not talk about Gonzo that way, please. Let's
I
be a
know
little.
Gonzo's team isn't one of the biggest. It's the same division, but it's
I'm
not
kidding.
the
I'm
Reds.
kidding. The Reds are doing well. They're doing much better, like
Real quick,
Gonzo
before we
said.
do that, Dustin, let me ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Reds' third baseman Spencer Steer? He's got off to a real good start. Rookie was leading the league in chase rate throughout the whole league. He don't swing at pitches out of the zone, and was hitting over 300. I think he's might have came down just a little bit now, but he's really stood out to me on this young Reds team, and I think he could be a good prospect for us over there at third.
He can be, and that I think the Reds are going to be maybe not this year, obviously, but I'm not even going to say next year too, because I don't think the Reds are going to get off to the start that the Pittsburgh Pirates have gotten off to next year. But by 2025, I think the Reds could be what the Pittsburgh Pirates are this year. Because you had the Reds that were struggling for the better part of 7 or 8 years, and then from 2010 through 2014, when they had Cueto and Matt Latos and kind of that good starting rotation that they had for that 4 years, they were winning 95 to 100 games. They made the playoffs 4 straight years. And then after that, they pretty much tore everything down and haven't been able to make it to the playoffs since.
That's when we had Dusty.
Yep, but now you're kind of in the same situation that the Pirates are in, where you've had talented players the last couple of years, but they're all on 1-year deals, so you flip them at the deadline and just kind of restock that farm system. And now you're starting to see that farm system bear the fruits, like Hunter Green and Graham Ashcroft and some of those starting pitchers that have started to come through. And now, like you said, Spencer Steer, and then you have Ellie De La Cruz, who is an absolute freak of nature, who's probably going to be in the majors at some point this year.
He just got back on the field in the minors. He was coming off an injury.
Yeah, and then you have to look at the rest of your top 5 prospect list, which is kind of where I wonder what the Reds are going to do at this point, because you said Spencer Steer plays third base. The Reds' number 2 prospect is Noelvi Marte, who's a shortstop third baseman. The Reds' number 4 prospect is Cam Collier, who's a third baseman. The Reds' number 5 prospect, Matt McLean, who's a third baseman. The Reds' number 6 prospect is Christian. And honestly, Christian Encarnacion Strand, who's in AAA right now with Ellie De La Cruz, is crushing the baseball right now in AAA.
So why can't they take some of those guys that are slated as third baseman and see if they can convert them to first baseman?
Well, because Joey Votto's still there for 2 years, and you're not going to really move him until he's ready. But the Reds have other options that they're going to use that I think, and I expect the Reds to go after a free agent first baseman as opposed to converting.
Okay, so even at that,
right now they've been playing third baseman.
Why not trade some of them for other positional needs?
They also been playing Stevenson at first.
Yeah,
they play him at first when he's not catching.
Yeah, and that's my big thing with Steer right now is he going to stay at third base? Because, like I said, Christian Encarnacion Strand is absolutely crushing the ball right now in AAA. And he's going to be, like, right now at AAA, he's hitting a 448.
Yeah.
And he's 23 games into the season. He's hitting a 448 in AAA right now. And last year he had 32 homers and 114 RBIs in AAA and hit a 304. So the guy's pretty much at the point now where he has nothing left to prove in the minors. It's just a matter of when Cincinnati wants to call him up. And when they do call him up, he's going to third base because that's the only position he plays. So then what do you do with Spencer Steer? Do you put him at DH? Do you move him to shortstop? And if you move him to shortstop, he's only going to be there for a short time too because Ellie De La Cruz is going to be coming up at some point this year. And when Ellie De La Cruz gets up, he's the shortstop of the future, and he's going to be the shortstop for the next decade plus in Cincinnati.
I'm hoping they bring him up pretty quick. I'd rather him go ahead and bring him up once he gets healthy and let him start going through that learning curve.
I would have been on board with that a couple of weeks ago, except for I don't know if you watched the most recent Louisville Bat series when they faced the Iowa Cubs.
No, I think
the Iowa Cubs scored 67 runs in the 6-game series against Louisville. And one of the games was 18-16, and then another game was 13-0, and another game was 10-0. And Ellie De La Cruz is only hitting a 195 right now in AAA. And that's after he had a 304 and a 296 his last 2 years. So Ellie De La Cruz is struggling a lot right now in AAA. He needs.
But he hasn't played a whole lot of games though either.
He's played a fair amount. He's played 12 games, so he's missed like the last 8 or whatever. But he still needs more time in AAA before they call him up. He'll be a July call up if anything. Versus Encarnacion Strand, I think he'll be called up at some point in May if he keeps hitting a 448.
I like the direction we're going, and our relief pitching has to get better. Our starting pitching, I think, in a year or two is going to be real good with Lodolo, Ashcraft, and Green.
Well, yeah, and then you also have that Chase Petty, who's your number 7 prospect, a right-handed pitcher, and then you have 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all pitching prospects for the Reds. 2 are righties, 2 are lefties. So you have 4 pitching prospects in your top 10, and 2 of them are supposed to be in the majors by the end of 2023, early 2024. So you do have help on the way, too.
My thing is, if you got that many, again, I said earlier, if you got that many prospects that are ranked pretty good in your system at third base, why not take some of those prospects and either trade for a free agent or trade for other draft picks and other positional needs?
They will at some point, and you have to. That's the same situation that the Cubs found themselves in 2012 when they were rebuilding.
They had what happened with Steer.
Yeah,
they might get traded because of the guys that they have coming up behind them.
And you look at the Cubs back, and even the Astros, you can say, Jay, the Astros had so many positional prospects back when they were rebuilding that they didn't want to trade any of those pieces until they were ready to compete. And when they were ready,
I understand that. And I'm really glad they did because, like you said, I think by having Pena in the AAA system, it allowed Correa, who we know had injury-prone issues, to be traded and bring up Pena, and it has served us well. So I do get what you're saying.
And I think that's kind of this position that the Reds are in right now. Like, the Reds know they're going to have to trade at least 2 or 3 of these guys. They know they are because you can't have a team with 9 third basemen. So they know they're going to have to.
I'm like,
they know they're going to have to trade some of these pieces, but I think they're going to hold on to these pieces as long as they can until they get to that point where we're ready to compete. Now we feel like we have the personnel in place where we compete. So now we're going to trade some of these pieces away to acquire talent, and then we're going to go out and sign more talent.
They keep saying next year is going to be the year that they're going to compete, but I think it's honestly, I believe
I do agree. I think next year is going to be the year they compete, but I think it's going to be a situation where they're very competitive the first half of the year. And once you get to the All-Star break, once you get to July, you might start seeing them sell off one more time just because they're there, but they're not quite there yet. And I think 2025 is the year where they kind of fully turn the corner, go into like a whole competing for the whole entire season. I think next year.
Unless they do typical Red stuff and they sell off half the team.
Well, they don't really have anybody to sell off at this point. I mean, they have Joey Votto and Tyler Stevenson, and that's about it. Everybody else is all prospects under minor league deals.
They basically sold everybody off already. There ain't nobody to sell no more, Jay.
Hey, but maybe, Chris, that might be a good thing for you. That might be a good thing for you.
Yeah, I think they'll compete next year, but I'd say give 2 seasons. The year after is the season that I think they really start.
And like the position that the Cubs are in right now, I think is the position that the Reds are going to be in next year. Like the Cubs have been very competitive this year so far. They're 15-13, and you can argue that they should be 18-12 with some of the games that they've given away. And I think they're going to be pretty much kind of floating right around 500, slightly above 500 for the first 3 months of the season. And then when you get to July, if the team goes into like a long 5-6 game losing streak where all of a sudden they're now sitting at 4 or 5 games under 500, then you might start seeing them sell off guys like Cody Bellinger, Tucker Barnhart, and some of these guys that they signed to these 1-year deals. But if the Cubs can remain above 500 and even maybe be 5, 6, 7 games above 500 when you get close to the deadline, then you might see them sell off some of their prospects for other assets that can help them next year. And I think that's the position the Reds are going to be in next year, where if they can stay right around 500 and stay afloat for the first half of the season, that's going to determine what they do the rest of 2024 heading into 2025.
And what the Reds like right now?
No, go ahead, Gonz. You're fine.
I was just gonna say real quick, with the Reds right now, they're 12-17. They could very easily be a 500 team with the games that they've given away that they've had chances to win.
Yeah, they could.
I mean, at least we're more competitive than we were last year. So Hey, that's all I can ask for right now.
Well, you've already taken the step from last year to where you're, and it's going to be a building process for you guys, Gonzo. You know that. Look at the Astros, man. For crying out loud, we got rid of everybody. Went down to damn near last. We lost 3 straight 100 lost seasons before we started coming back up. So everything takes time. Everything takes time to build. You'll be fine.
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
I think the biggest key to the Reds too, Gonzo, is David Bell. Do the Reds stick with David Bell beyond this year if they feel like they're ready to compete? Or are they just going to hold on to David Bell until they're ready to compete? Because I think for the Reds to get to that next level, they need to get rid of David Bell. But I don't see them getting rid of David Bell until ownership feels like they're in a position where they can compete. So if it's the same situation next year where I just talked about, where the Reds are going to be competitive that first half and maybe hover around 500 the first half, I think David Bell is back one more year just to get him through that last part of the transition process. And then when you get to 2025, then you might see the Reds move on from Bell and bring in a more experienced manager to kind of take all the pieces the Reds have acquired and try to put them together.
Yeah, and they were saying last year, well, at the end of last season, during the offseason, that this could be Bell's last season if he didn't show something. But
and that's the thing. You can look at the record and say it's not good, but he's actually showing a little bit of something this year that he knows how to develop these younger
they
pieces.
can very easily be 500 or a little bit better than 500. So
that's why he's showing that he can develop these younger pieces, and that's why I think they may hang on to him another year just to get him in a position where you've done your job with these younger players. You've done your job setting these younger players up for success. Let us go now and get the manager we want to take what you've built and take it to the next level.
Because I mean, if you really look at it, last year they were. If you took out the first month of the season, after that they played played almost 500 ball the rest of the season.
Because you can say the same thing about AJ Hinch, Jay. Look at what AJ Hinch did in Houston with all that young talent. He basically built that talent from the ground up, got him to the point where they basically started winning the World Series, and then once all that stuff happened, they fired AJ Hinch. They went with Dusty Baker, but look where AJ Hinch is now. They put AJ Hinch in Detroit, and now he's in the same situation that he was when he was with Houston. He's got a young team with a ton of young players and a ton of young prospects that he's going to have to build up for the next 3 or 4 years to get him in the position that everybody wants to get him, but Hinch has the experience doing that.
Yeah, Hinch really, he got a bad rap, and rightfully so for what went down in Houston. But the damn guy is a freaking good manager, man, and you're gonna see that. I was sad to see Hinch go because I felt like the culture that him and Alex Cora built in Houston, the way in which the players approached games and things like that, he's going to develop that same culture, or already is building that same culture out there in Detroit. And if you look at Cora's doing over in Boston, Boston's actually playing good baseball right now. They took some beatings, they lost some players, but they get that culture. They got that culture from Cora, and Cora got the culture from Hinch. And I'm telling you, Hinch, he's going to do good things out there in Detroit. It's just like you said, it's just a matter of time for him to be able to build the squad up to where they need to be. So I love AJ Hinch. I always have loved AJ Hinch. It's a shame that he had to leave Houston because I really, really loved him as a manager. But again, we got Dusty Baker. I love Dusty. Dusty's doing great things for Houston. So all in all, hey, everything worked out the way it was supposed to. My question is, and again, this is mad kudos for you calling it earlier before the season started about how good the Rangers were going to be. Now you look at how good the Rangers are. We just talked about Arizona and where did they come from. We talked about Pittsburgh and where they came from. Well, guess what? The Rangers play Arizona starting on May 2nd, which is today actually. So they get a 2-game series with Arizona then. Then they go on to play the Angels, Seattle for 3 games, the A's. Then they got a stretch of 3 games with Atlanta. And then they got a stretch with the Pirates May 22nd to the 24th, and then Baltimore from 26th to the 28th. My question is this. 3 out of the 2 teams I mentioned have, once been completely dog shit. Now they're looking really freaking good right now. Baltimore's number 2. Arizona is a half game behind the Dodgers now at number 2. Pirates are number 1. They're getting ready to face the Yankees, or they're getting ready to face the Rangers between now and the end of May. How many of those teams, the Pirates, the Baltimore Orioles, and the Arizona Diamondbacks, of those 3 series, do you think the Rangers take those guys out and win those 3 series and knock those guys back down a peg to where we think they probably should have been?
I think they at least win 2 of those series. They may split with Arizona because it's only a 2-game set. They may go 1-1, but the other 2 series, I think they win. And you look at the thing that Texas did this year, unlike Baltimore, unlike Arizona, and unlike Pittsburgh. Those 3 teams have built their teams on young talent and prospects that they've acquired from selling off. What Texas did was they brought in an inexperienced and first-time manager in Chris Woodward, who ended up being there, I think, for 2 years, maybe 3 years, and Texas started spending a boatload of money trying to compete. And Woodward could not handle the team that they had assembled last year with Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and those pieces that they brought in last year. So then they go and get Jacob deGrom this year. They go and get Andrew Haney this year. They go and add another pitcher that I'm forgetting off the top of my head this year to that rotation, Eovaldi. And what do? They bring in a manager like Bruce Bochy, who is used to managing teams like this. Going back to his days in San Francisco, he always had top-level talent at every position. Going back to his days in San Diego when he took San Diego to the World Series, always had top-level talent at all these positions. So Bochy is the manager. Bochy is the right manager for Texas because they have veterans at practically every position, and he knows how to manage veterans. Woodward was given a team that he really had no business managing because he needed to be brought into a situation like Pittsburgh, like Arizona, like Baltimore, where he could struggle for 4 years and not have anything to worry about. He would have to be brought into a position where he's in a team that's going to be trading off of their assets to acquire prospects, and then he can build a team how he wants to build it. And he was never set up that way in Texas. That's why I think the biggest offseason move of anybody this year, I think, was Texas getting Bruce Bochy.
Absolutely.
So than DeGrom, more so than Verlander going to the Mets, more so than anybody getting any player. Bochy going to Texas, I think, was the biggest.
That was the number 1 move over this. I agree with you. That was the number 1 best acquisition of all season was Bruce Bochy. And I'll tell you, because you can put the right players in there, but if you don't have the right manager, again, we go back to culture. If you don't have the right manager that has the right culture, the right leadership styles, those players don't mean anything. And Bruce Bochy is the guy that is the glue or the leader of this team, and that's why they're playing so well. Question, Dustin, Pirates, though. I want to ask you Gonzo, I'm going to ask you the Pirates specifically. Can the Rangers take the Pirates and make them out either to believers or realists, or are they wannabes? Are the Pirates the real deal, or are they pretenders? Can the Rangers expose them?
I don't know if they'll expose them, but I think the Rangers will win the series. I think today's game is going to be a good one because if I remember right, the Pirates have damn it, I'm trying to think of the pitcher's name now on the mound, but one of their better pitchers on the mound as well. So I think today's game will be a decent game, but I can't remember off the top of my head who they have pitching.
Yeah, we're gonna find out a lot of what the Pirates are about right now.
And that's what I'm getting at, right? That's really what I'm trying to get at is,
are
these Pirates the real deal? And I really think the Rangers will in my opinion, I think the Rangers will expose them as either being the real deal or crumbling.
Pittsburgh doesn't play the Rangers until the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th.
Right, exactly.
If you look at the rest of this month for Pittsburgh, they have a 3-game set with Tampa Bay right now, starting today. Then they have Toronto for 3 immediately after that. They have Colorado for 3. Then they go to Baltimore for 3. They go to Arizona for 3. They get Texas for 3. They get Seattle for 3, and they get San Francisco for 4. So you're going to find out a lot about the Pittsburgh Pirates after May. And if they're still above 500, maybe not 10 or 11 games above 500 like they are now, but if they can get through the month of May and still be 5 or 6 games above 500, then I think you can start talking about the Pirates as possibly being like a legitimate team, because if they can get through this 20-game gauntlet of these teams that they're facing in May and still be 5-6 games above 500 after it.
Then you got to start believing in the Pirates at that point.
So I think we have to wait until after May before we make that decision.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Billy Buzz says, Jay, I was thinking they were playing the Pirates, but they're playing the Diamondbacks today. I don't know why I was thinking they were playing the Pirates. But
Billy, I know you got a parlay that today of $40, and I think you're a good enough financial person that you can afford to lose the $40. I really hope that you lose that parlay because I desperately want the Rangers to lose so the Astros can gain ground on first place. So I hope you lose your parlay. No ill will towards you at all, but I hope you lose your parlay. Secondly, though, let me ask you this: that when you look at the Astros schedule, their schedule is not as daunting, I don't think, as the Rangers is. I think the Rangers have a little bit tougher schedule than the Astros. The Astros are looking at Seattle, Angels, Sox, White Sox. We got the Cubs, the A's, Milwaukee, and then back to the A's, Twins, and Angels. So, in my opinion, I think that the Astros have a relatively soft schedule between now and pretty much, I think, really, honestly, till June 4th. I think we have a moderate to moderately easy schedule compared to what the Rangers are doing. Do you think, guys, both of you guys, do you think the Astros can reclaim first place before June 4th?
It depends on how they can handle the injuries and the staff. And I think
that's a good damn point.
That's the biggest. They may have an easier schedule than Texas, but then you have the X factor of, yes, Jacob deGrom is hurt, but Houston's got 2 starters out as opposed to Texas having 1.
That's exactly.
I think that's going to be the great equalizer is how does Houston make up for those 2 starters being out? And if they can,
that's a good point.
Even if they go 3-2, let's just say their 3 regular starters win all their starts, but then the 2 replacement starters lose all their starts. So if they go 3-2 every 5 games in a 25-game stretch, or what, going 15-8? I mean, that's solid 15-8. That'll be good enough to get you back in the first place. So if they can go 3-2 basically every 5 games over the next 25 games, then I think they can get back in the first place. It's just going to be more about who they use in the rotation for the time being and how those 2 replacement starters do.
Because I really believe, like what you're saying, during this stretch of the schedule, like what we have now versus what the Rangers have, honestly, this is our best opportunity to reclaim first. You know what I'm saying, number one. And number two, to your point, the fact that, we have Urquidy out and we have Garcia out. What better time to have them out than during this easier stretch rather than, during the harder stretch? So I don't like my 2 starters being down, but at the same time, I'm okay with it because I'd rather them be down now during the softer side of the schedule than the harder side of the schedule, number one. Number two, I feel like, I feel like we can. I feel like we can do it, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. I think, like you said, the Rangers, they're just a hard team, man. Right now, they're really good. I got to give you credit, Dustin, man. You really called that out, and I thought you did really well scouting that out and giving us the insight on what you were thinking. Because, man, as you can see, it's definitely come to fruition. Number 2, Anthony Price. I said this earlier. All you got to do, baby, is win 15 games a month, and you're going to make the 90-game window. Yep. And you're right. I think Baltimore should be able to secure a wild card berth and get that 90, especially where they're playing right now.
Yeah, and like with what you were saying about Texas, it wasn't that I didn't expect Houston to have a good team. It's the fact that you look at the pieces that Texas got last year and Corey Seager and Marcus Semien and the pieces that they added to that offense. And then they threw in Jacob deGrom and Eovaldi this year to help a rotation, which was, I think, 28th out of 30 in baseball last year, which is the main reason why they were under 500 is because they had no starting pitching. Yeah, then they brought in Bochy. I'm like, Bochy's what that team needed. They needed that veteran manager to put everything together. And everyone knows how much success Bochy had with San Francisco when he won those 3 World Series in 5 years, but yet he never gets the credit or the respect that he deserves. And that guy was one of the best managers for almost 2 decades and still never got the credit he deserved.
Yeah, okay, I had to put Billy Buzz in timeout. Billy, the fact that you said, but we hope my Astros crumble. First of all, sir, please address me as world champion. Secondly, I had to put you in timeout for that comment. little hate on your side. Little hate. So I had to put you in timeout. You'll be okay. You'll come back and we'll continue mission. But I had Gonzo. Don't look at me like that. I had to put Billy in timeout.
I didn't even
He
see
said
the
some
comment.
very ugly things about Houston, and I had to put him in timeout. He said that he hopes the Astros crumble. Gonzo, we can't have that kind of talk on this show.
But no, the Rangers, they could hit the ball last year. Their biggest problem last year, like Dustin was saying, was the pitching.
Yeah, the Texas Rangers were 5th in baseball in runs scored last year. They actually scored 34 more runs than the Astros did last year. It's just that they could not pitch to save their freaking life last year.
Colton May says, yo, hey, Colton May, this is the first time I've ever seen you on the show. So thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for joining us.
And secondly, Dustin, you're right, man. I didn't want to face that, but you guys are right, man. And I thought that was the biggest hit point, I think, that really enlightened me to the Rangers, and what you made was the fact that how well they were playing offensively. They just needed the pitching, and now they got the pitch. Not only get the pitching, but they also got the manager, and that was just a huge, huge thing for those guys.
Well, and they
I think the Rangers are the best team right now. I hate to say this, world champions, but I think the Rangers got the best team right now until somebody dethrones them, which I hope Houston can do that. Right now, I think the Rangers are the best team in baseball. I really do.
I still say Tampa Bay is.
I don't think so. I'm not sold on Tampa Bay. We took the series away from Tampa, so I'm not really believing that. I need more. I need to see more from Tampa to get on that bandwagon.
Oh no, they're looking pretty good. They can hit the hell out of the ball.
Hey, watch this. They look all right.
What do you guys make of the start that St. Louis has gotten off to this year?
Yeah, it surprised the hell out of me. I thought they'd be better than what they are.
Yeah, St. Louis definitely. By the way, Billy, I think everybody's day's going pretty good, but yeah.
I definitely didn't think they were going to be in the bottom of the division.
And honestly, I'm not surprised. What is the one major change that organization went through this year?
Well, they lost Pujols. They lost, I believe, was it Yadier Molina? Didn't he?
That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
Who replaced Yadier?
They lost. That's a big move. That's like the Astros. If we ever lose Maldonado, I'm nervous because
Who
Maldonado
replaced
is
Yadier,
like our pitching coach behind the plate, and I think Yadier Molina is the same thing for St. Louis. He's such a good play caller behind the plate for those pitchers that when you lose a guy like that, you lose a lot.
And who replaced Yadier?
Not that I don't. You'll have to educate me on that.
Wilson Contreras, the Cubs' old catcher.
Damn it, that's right. Son of a bitch.
Why did the Cubs not re-sign Wilson Contreras, and why did they not care that he left?
Because he wasn't calling good games behind the plate.
Wilson Contreras ranked 75th out of 78 in catchers last year in terms of defensive metrics, whether it was pitch framing, whether it was game calling, whether it was everything.
Let me ask you: Where did Vasquez? He left the Astros. Where did he rank?
Vasquez ranked 32nd. Maldonado ranked 25th.
Why is Maldonado at 25th? I feel like I think that's like a slap in his face.
Because he doesn't pitch frame that well, but he calls good games. Vasquez is the opposite. He pitch frames really well.
He doesn't want to call good games, though. He's extremely good at defense.
Yeah.
His defensive game is stupid.
Yeah. The thing with Wilson Contreras, though, if you look at last year especially, when Wilson Contreras was catching for the Cubs last year, their team ERA was a 4.65. When Yan Gomes was catching or any other catcher was catching in place of Wilson Contreras, for whether Contreras was hurt or whether they gave him the day off or whether they put Contreras at DH because they use him at DH sometimes, the Cubs' ERA without Wilson Contreras was a 3.1. Almost a 2-run difference without Wilson Contreras catching. You look at this year now, the Cubs are going with Yan Gomes and Tucker Barnhart as their 2 catchers. And the Cubs' ERA this year is a 3.47, which is 5th in Major League Baseball. The Cardinals' ERA with Wilson Contreras right now is a 4.65. They are 26th in Major League Baseball. The reason why the Cardinals are where they are at is because Wilson Contreras does not know how to call a game behind the plate, and he doesn't know how to pitch frame. And if you look at who's in that St. Louis staff, Adam Wainwright, Miles Michaelis, Matthew Laborator. They have 3 guys in that rotation that do not touch 92 miles an hour and are dependent on getting calls off the corner. They're dependent on getting borderline calls in the strike zone to be successful. And if Contreras cannot get them those borderline calls, those pitchers are absolutely screwed, which is the reason why they're at where they are right now.
So who do you have right now then at number 1 in terms of catchers? Like, who would you put at number 1?
Like overall catches, like everything, like game calling.
Just like the 5-tool guy, the guy that can pitch frame, the guy that can call a good game plan, the guy that's defensive, the guy that has somewhat of an offensive prowess behind, as well. Like who would you say, is the shiznit of catching?
Probably Adley Rutschman in Baltimore.
Okay.
And then probably either JT Real Muto or Cal Raleigh.
I like Real Muto. I really do. For Philadelphia, I like that.
Or Cal Raleigh in Seattle.
Wow. Yeah, I like Real Muto. That Philly guy, when I watched him during the series, that hey Billy, I had to do it, baby. You were being disrespectful to the world champions. We can't have that on the show. We can't have it, Billy. That's like cursing. That's like going into a Catholic church, walking up to the priest and spitting in his face. I can't let you do it, Billy. I can't. But I love you. You're my boy, boo boo. Or I don't know. What's your thoughts on Jose Trevino?
If Jose Trevino was more offensive minded, I'd probably put him higher up. But he's I'm not saying he's not a good offensive catcher because he is going to get you probably 10 to 15 home runs and whatnot, but he's more of like a defensive specialist and more of a game caller than anything versus like with guys like Adley Rutschman and Realmuto and Cal Raleigh. They're pretty much both. They're great defensive catchers. They both run, or all 3 of them run extremely well for catchers, especially stinking JT Realmuto, who runs like an outfielder, and they're all going to get you 20-plus home runs. Like, they're more than... And like Wilson Contreras, I would put up in that same category if the guy knew how to call a game, because he's going to get you 20 to 25 home runs every year. He's probably one of the top 3 offensive catchers in the game. He's just one of the worst defensive catchers in the game, and he's now been in baseball for 10 years, and he hasn't improved.
Let me ask you a question. How many more? Because this is what worries me right now with my ball club. I love Maldi. I really, really love Maldi. But I know his time is coming close to an end because he's getting older. He can't have many more years left in him. Number one, how many more years do you think Maldi has before he calls it a day? He calls it a career for him.
I believe he's a free agent after this year.
Right.
Which I'm not going to be surprised if he maybe calls it a career then, if he doesn't find someone to sign. I don't think he signs a 1-year deal at 34. If somebody gives him a multi-year deal, I think he comes back one more time. But if he can't get that multi-year deal next offseason, I wouldn't be surprised if he just packed it in after this year.
How many years? How old was Molina when he left St. Louis?
He was 39, and Maldonado is going to be 37 this upcoming offseason.
So he's about 2 years younger. So do you think he would do a 2 or 3 year deal?
I think he would. I think he would do it.
Smart for Houston to even offer him a 2 or 3.
I think he would do a 2 or 3 year deal because then he can just sign one more contract and retire after that contract. At 37 years old, I don't see him doing one of those 1-year deals and then hitting another offseason and having to sign a 1-year deal and possibly going to another city. And if he wants to play again, maybe going to like 3 different cities in 3 years. The only way that I see him sticking around is if he's guaranteed to be in one place for multiple years. Otherwise, that's at 38 years old, that's a toll to go to like 3 different cities, 3 different years, just because you want to hang on. You know you still have something left, but you're not getting that multi-year deal that you're hoping for.
What would you do? What do you think? Because our backup guy is Yanni or Diaz. He's not too bad, but he's a young guy. Do you think Houston should try to invest more in him or offer Maldonado a 2-year deal and try to find somebody else?
When you look at the free agent market for catchers next year, it's good, but it's not great. Yasmani Grandal is going to be the top free agent catcher next year, even though I think he's going to be a DH going forward because he's a defensive liability behind the plate. But you also have guys like Travis d'Arnaud, Omar Narvaez, Mike Zunino, Jan Gomes, Mitch Garver, who's a decent catcher in Minnesota, Kurt Casale, Victor Caratini, and Jorge Alfaro and Roberto Perez. So, I mean, there's some valuable catchers in there which are starter-worthy caliber catchers, and they would be an upgrade to who Houston has as their backup. So I wouldn't be surprised if Houston tries to go after one of those guys for like 3 years, 15 to 20 million in that range. And then I could still see them bringing back Maldonado on a 2-year deal just to give him a more stable duo behind the plate.
Interesting. Yeah, that catcher position. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what's more important? I think to me, I think the catcher position has got to be singly the most important position in the whole damn team. Honestly,
it is
because of what he means to it.
Yeah, it is, especially like when that's what made Yadier Molina so valuable was he was never going to get you more than 15 home runs.
Did you delete a comment, Jay? I don't know what comment you're talking about, Anthony.
Yeah, he was never going to get you more than 15 home runs. I think the most home runs Yadier Molina ever had was I think he had one season of 16. Otherwise, he was always between 9 and 11 home runs every year. So he was never going to be this big offensive-minded catcher. The thing that made Yadier Molina better than everybody else was he was like having a second manager, but a manager on the field because he knew exactly how he wanted to call the game. He was always 2 or 3 steps ahead of the hitter. Like whenever he was behind home plate, him and Adam Wainwright, I think they talked about this last year actually. Him and Adam Wainwright would go through signs like behind home plate, but Yadier Molina would give him signs for the pitches that he wanted on the next 3 pitches. So not only was Wainwright agreeing to the next pitch that he was going to throw, but he was agreeing to the next 2 pitches after that. So then the next 3 pitches with Yadier Molina is not even doing anything. He's just setting up where he wants that ball to go. And then all of a sudden he's going through a new set of signs to get Wainwright to throw 3 more pitches. So Molina was always 2 steps ahead of everybody else. And the pitchers that he was working with thrived off of that because it seemed like they were working quicker than everybody else. And it always seemed like they were 1 step ahead of the hitters every single time. And that's because Yadier kept them that way.
Gonzo, so Anthony Price was saying that he works 10 to 5 now, so he's missing your sports betting show at 3, and he needs help in baseball.
I didn't see that comment.
If Pete Rose has told us anything, it's not to bet on baseball.
Damn, coach. No, but yeah, man, because I tell you that I was really upset when we lost Vasquez. And I said that because I felt like I know he's ranked 32nd, but he really did well with the Astros pitching staff. Like, he did on point pitching when he was in the game. Dude, we threw two no-hitters with that guy.
Yeah, that was the thing, though. I think Vasquez banked on having a good run with Houston and got paid accordingly. And I don't think Houston was going to match what somebody else in the open market was going to match to get Vasquez. I'm pretty sure Houston wanted him back. I just don't think they were going to give him the $8 to $10 million a year that he was asking for on the open market. And I actually think he signed for $12 million a year because I think it was a 3-year, $36 million contract he signed with Minnesota. So I don't think Houston was going to match $12 million for a guy that is not even going to be their everyday catcher.
Well, that's true, and I can understand that. It's interesting when we speak about money because look how many teams are in the upper part of the standings that have a payroll of less than $100 million.
Yep.
And look how many teams that have spent exorbitant amounts of money, but yet are 3rd or 4th in the standings, except for the Mets, who are at number 2. And I'm sorry. If the Mets spent that much damn money, they shouldn't even be number 2. They should be number 1. But Atlanta said, go fuck yourself, New York. We don't care how much money.
Well, it's because Atlanta was the freaking smart people and signed Ronald Acuna to a 10-year, $120 million deal and signed all their damn star players to these 10-year contracts before they really prove themselves. So all these 10-year deals they were giving out for a third of the price because they're like, well, we believe that you're going to turn into a superstar.
Financially, it's amazing.
Now.
Yeah, financially, I gotta give Atlanta credit. Financially, they are a very smart ball club. Because, like you said, 10 years at a third of the price for a lot of these guys is insane. It's insane, and it's just showing you because it keeps them competitive forever. How many years?
That's why they were able to sign Matt Olson to the extension they gave him last year. That's why they were able to trade for Sean Murphy this year and give him the extension they gave him, is because all their other core players are locked up for the next 6-7 years at a third of the price. So now anybody that they trade for, they can technically overpay to sign him to an extension if they want to, because everybody else is locked up and they don't got to worry about it.
Not Gonzo. Dustin, did you put that comment up?
What?
I don't know, but somebody spelled Orioles or Oriles.
I messed up. I didn't fix it. It was me.
The Orioles? Orioles? Who the hell are the Orioles? Are they in the independent ball club?
I guarantee you Anthony Price knew who the fuck I was talking about.
Are they an independent ball club?
Hey, God, all you had to do is just put an O in there. Put O''S. Would have been good.
Are they a new Atlanta team?
I guarantee he knows who I was talking about. It'd be all right.
Hey, I might have to switch you out and put Damon in there or Mickey Delaney. That you're spelling like they are right now. You been drinking? Hey, you been drinking over there?
Yep. Been drinking my juice.
This is not
juice, baby.
This is not baseball related, but it just popped through in my phone, so I'm going to say it anyways. But the Green Bay Packers have just signed Jordan Love to a 1-year, $24 million. Why the hell are you giving him $24 million?
He hasn't even really stepped foot on the football field yet. Everything in my being, and I hate to say that to Jordan Love, but everything in my being just wants Jordan Love to be a failure, just so the Packers can eat that shit.
Well, I don't want him to be a failure.
Everything in my being, I want him to be the biggest bust ever, and I want the Packers to just eat that shit.
I don't want him to be a bust because he didn't ask to be put in the situation he was put in.
Hey. I didn't ask you what you liked.
I want him to fail. But I don't want him to fail. I want the team to fail because I hate the Packers.
Well, he has to fail for the team to fail.
Not necessarily, because he could go. He could go out and have a solid career. He could go out and throw 30 touchdowns a year with 10 interceptions a year and have a good career. But the rest of the team could be jack shit and not do anything for him. Like, I want the team to fail because I don't like the team, but I don't mind Jordan Love as a player. Like, I liked him in college. I thought he was a decent quarterback in college. He didn't ask to be put in the position that he was put in, and the amount of shit that guy's had to deal with the last 3 years, he at least deserves some respect and some credit for being able to handle it the way he did and kind of just go about his business every single day, knowing that every day I go to work, I have to deal with the fucking circus of Aaron Rodgers, and I just have to stay here.
I hope Jordan Love on his debut throws 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. There.
Like, I want him to have a decent career. I don't want him to have a Hall of Fame career just because that would be living proof that the Packers really know what the hell they're doing when it comes to finding quarterbacks, as opposed to just getting lucky for the last 30 years. So I don't want him to go out and have a Hall of Fame career by any means, but I don't wish anything bad on the guy just because he never asked to be put in the situation he was in. Just like all these quarterbacks that had to sit behind Tom Brady as long as they had to sit behind Tom Brady, and they finally had their chance, like Jimmy Garoppolo and when Brian Hoyer had his limited opportunity before he got hurt. I never wished any of those quarterbacks any bad luck because they never asked to be put in the situation they were put into. They just got...
Hey, watch this. Hey, I want you to learn a term. It is used widely in the military. Collateral damage.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is more than collateral damage.
I'm just saying. I love Jordan Loves, but I need him to be a bust, and that's called collateral damage.
Yeah.
All right, let's get the final thoughts, fellas. I gotta get to an appointment.
I bet you do. Off one of them has you talking to somebody to teach you how to spell.
Dude, I made one mistake. Get off me. No, hopefully they give me something to fucking take care of some of this pain in my legs.
Hey, is that code for when you go to your doctor's appointment and they put you on whatever pain medication that will probably have you sleeping through the afternoon blitz?
Oh no, I'll be ready.
Okay, look, I'm just asking because I need to know these things so I know what's going on at 1 o'clock.
I mean, one way to solve the pain is just grab a freaking bone saw and cut it off.
I've thought about it. Believe me.
What kind of cannibalistic person are you over there? Jeez,
I was watching Dexter this morning.
He said, man, I'm talking about breaking out a saw and cutting off a low. What the hell is wrong with you?
I was watching Dexter this morning. That's a good show.
It is. It's not a bad show. It's not a bad show. It's not a great show. I watched Cocaine Bear. Now that was a good show.
I haven't watched that yet. But Jay, I've heard it was actually good as well. I've heard.
Bro, it's nice and gruesome and stupidly crazy. And the fact that it was based off a true story and the actual Cocaine Bear is actually in the capital of Atlanta or capital of Georgia in Atlanta. Amazing, crazy.
But if worst comes to worst, Jay, I've already made the link for the afternoon show, so there is a link made. But I'll be no, I gotta go to this.
I'll be on again today too. I just might be a little late, but I'll be on again today.
When I get back from the appointment, I probably won't have time to lay down, so I should be good.
Dustin, if you want to be on Unscripted tonight or Thursday, let me know.
Unscripted tonight is a no. We had snow yesterday, so now our practice from yesterday got moved to tonight. So let
me know if you want to be on Thursday because Gonzo has to take that day off. So
all right, I'll let you know.
For his wrestling stuff.
Tonight probably won't happen because I got practice 6 to 8:30 tonight.
Yeah,
I have moved on from tonight. I was talking about Thursday.
And I said Thursday is a possibility. It just depends on what Mother Nature does from now until Thursday.
It's freaking Wisconsin. You know damn good and well what Mother Nature's going to do, you son of a bitch. It's going to give you more snow. Fuck.
Yeah, well, it better not because we have practice tomorrow too. So if it snows tomorrow, then practice gets bumped to Thursday.
Yeah. We had snow, a mix of rain and snow yesterday, but
I'm just telling you. Hey, listen, I've lived in Wisconsin. I know exactly how that weather works down there. So yeah.
Jay, what's your final thoughts, man?
No, hey, first of all, man, hey guys, man, great show. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. Dustin, as always, man, you know you're a great person to talk to and work with. Same to you, Gonzo, when you can spell correctly. Other than that, man, I appreciate you guys for addressing me as world champion. As that is what we are, world champions. And other than that, I just want to say, don't forget to check us out on Twitter at Unscripted Guys, all one word, or TikTok and YouTube under Unscripted Sports, all one word. And check us out tonight at 7 p.m. Gonzo, I know, will be on unless his medication puts him into some kind of weird funk. And we'll catch you guys tonight, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're talking NBA, NHL, baseball. We're going to talk everything. It's going to be a lot of fun. 7 p.m. Be there or be square. Much love.
That guy.
My final thoughts would be the Trevor Bauer comeback tour officially begins tonight as he will be making his Japan debut tonight. I don't know what time it is. I'm going to try to find it because I actually want to see how he does. And if all goes well in the next 4 months with whatever team he's playing for. I think it's Yokohama, whoever he's playing for.
No, it's Yokohama, I believe is who he's playing with. Is that going to be on regular TV? If so, what channel?
I think tonight's game is on ESPN or ESPN Plus just because it is his first game in like 2 years and it has like a lot of attention drawn to it. That's why I said I'm trying to figure out what time it is. It might be one of those stupid 5 a.m. games like it was when we had to watch the KBO during COVID. So it might be a super early game tomorrow, but I want to see how he does because if all goes well, I do expect him to try to get signed at some point this year or at least try to hit free agency again next year and try to latch on with somebody next year.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
I don't see it on ESPN, so it's got to be on somewhere else. Then
I'm gonna try to check it out if I'm tonight. I was a Bauer fan, and then all this stuff happened. But I'd like to see him get back in the league. Hopefully, he can come back and pitch well. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Gonzo Sports Room. Like and follow Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. At Gonzo Sports Room, also at the All Sports All Plays Network. Thanks for joining us today for Around the Bases. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, for another episode. Hope everybody has a great day. Join us at 1 p.m. Eastern for the ASAP Afternoon Blitz, 3 p.m. Eastern for Easy Money, a sports betting show. And then, like Jay said tonight, 7 o'clock unscripted. Hope everybody has a great Tuesday. We'll see you guys tomorrow.